inspections. What are they? Why are they important? And how can your organization leverage them? And so, as part of our session today, we'll look at a few different items and discuss what are some of the methods for inspections? How do inspections help drive results? Of course, also opportunities within your organization. When we think about inspections and digital forms, what data should we be looking at? What should we collect when leveraging digital inspections within our organization? And of course, as part of capturing that data, how do we report on it? How do we leverage that information that's being collected within field inspections to drive further efficiencies? As part of our session today, I'll be walking with you. My name is Tyler Hart, Solution Engineer at MSI Data, but along with me is also Amanda. Amanda, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tyler. Guys, it's really great to be here. Amanda Harp. I lead our partner network over at XOI, which means that I have the opportunity to work with a great team over at MSI and work very closely with Service Pro as a product. So it's great to be here. I appreciate it, Tyler.
And so, with that said, really the agenda here today is first we're going to look at what are inspections? What's the value? Why are they important for us as an organization? Why should we even think about using inspections as our field team? They're out there completing their work, capturing that detail. We'll also talk about what are some of those top data points? What do we see across various industries? What are some of those metrics that we should be keeping an eye on? We'll then move into just what kind of details and insights can be captured across equipment, make, model, serial number. And then, of course, how can inspections be leveraged for customer visibility, your customer, the end customer? How can we leverage inspections to keep them informed around service activity? So with that said, let's start with the foundation of inspections. And really there's three prongs to why inspections can bring value to an organization. The first one is operational visibility. And so the way to think about operational visibility is, from your day-to-day activities, how can you have inspections be out there capturing data to give you insights maybe into safety activity or just any of that information where someone might come to you and ask, hey, we need to audit this information. There's some liability here. Well, that's where inspections can come into play because they can really help capture those day-to-day activities, which, field team members are out there, they're capturing their mobile work order details. Why not have them complete an inspection every day as well, whether it's on their trucks or maybe job hazard analysis? But that way, then, when you need to run that reporting and you need that information, it's there for you because it's being digitally captured through an inspection. The next problem, if you will, is how inspections can help with process standardization. And really, this boils down to, as we see in the description, making sure that the right data is collected every single time. And so, a common example, and we'll talk about this more, is maybe, hey, on this type of service call, we want to always make sure that we're capturing XYZ. Well, one way that you can standardize that is through inspection forms, right? Because inspection forms sort of are a boilerplate to where you can make sure that every time that that service call happens or every time that action occurs, you're capturing that information. After process standardization, though, customer engagement. And so this is where, hey, for specific customers of yours, you might have to capture specific sets of data. And rather than having to manually think through that information or manually try and remember or manually add that to your work orders, you can just leverage inspections. Again, it's a templated way to say for this customer, let's capture this detail and get it to that customer in a matter of moments. And so now that we understand really those three main facets of inspections, how do those correlate to maybe some of the day-to-day actions that you see within your organization? And so we've listed some of those use cases here. But from an operational visibility standpoint, I mentioned this earlier, but some of the more common examples that we see of how do inspections help us, well, that can be around job safety forms, right? Job hazard analysis, setting requirements for, hey, take a picture of the expiration date on the fire extinguisher on the truck. Or we want it to be required that we're capturing the job site hazard details every single time we're out there on site. It's where inspections can be leveraged because you're able to set those parameters and enforce the capture of that data. Process standardization. When we think about, hey, on this make and model, whenever we do a planned maintenance visit, we need to capture maybe the service interval, maybe some other details, maybe pictures while out on site. Well, how do we enforce that data capture? And how do we then quickly convert it back to the OEM or another party? It's through inspections. That also can go for how do we, as a technician, maybe easily identify follow-up opportunities? Well, instead of doing free form everybody for themselves, this is where inspections can set up that templated list of questions. And so we can standardize that follow-up process. How do we know what details we need to capture when making a customer recommendation? It's through inspection forms. And then the last piece, again, customer engagement. How do we leverage inspections so that way it's emailed to the customer as soon as the visit is documented? Or how do we maybe put it into a customer portal so the customer can see this information? And that's where inspections can be leveraged. So again, whether it's a PDF sent via email or it's an inspection available via portal, there's at least a process there. And so the customer has added visibility. And since there's enforcement typically of the detail captured through an inspection, customer doesn't have to worry about, hey, why is this information not available to us? Now, taking that a step further. So we thought about maybe the three facets of inspections. We've thought about maybe some use cases tied to each of those facets. But now if we really break it down and think about, well, how is that information actually being captured? How is it being calculated? How can we find our efficiency? This is just providing some of that insight, right? Some of the more common metrics that you may know in your organization and how inspections can help with that. Have an audit compliance rate in your tracking mechanism. Well, how are you tracking that today and how are you calculating that? And as you think about that question, this is where when you standardize your organization and leverage something like digital inspections, well, that digital data can be pulled into typically your reporting, whether it's a business intelligence tool that's embedded or not embedded, but you can get at that inspection data to then automate how you track that compliance rate. Same goes for mean time to repair, first time fix rate. When we think about though technicians using inspections and capturing recommendations and opportunities while on site, that's where you can pull in that information and even start to report on revenue per technician or opportunities identified per technician. And then, of course, customer-centric metrics. When we think about customer satisfaction, this is where inspections, they can be leveraged for surveys, right? Especially when you're in control and you can determine what questions you want to ask. You can create those customer surveys so technicians can upload those inspections while on a job. Customer fills that inspection in, and through various settings, technician can't reopen it to see what the survey results were, but at least you now have those results as well, so you can then report on them and keep a pulse on what your temperature is with the customer. And so those are some of the metrics that we've seen being calculated mobile work order, right? And so as technicians are out there completing their mobile work orders, they're gathering what parts they use on a job, they're capturing their labor, but give them something easy where those digital inspections are just embedded within their mobile work order. We don't want to add another piece of technology. We want it to just be within that same consistent, consolidated experience for the technician. And so this is where, as they're reviewing equipment details, as they're tracking their work orders, ask yourself, where would they be completing their inspections? And how would they complete those inspections? And a lot of the times, there are inspection capabilities within the field service management solution. For more, though, I'll now turn it over to Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi guys, again, Amanda Harp here. Just kind of jumping in to build on everything that Tyler just covered around workflow and field data capture. This is really where that data, I think, becomes even more powerful. For those of you who are not aware, XOI has been an integrated partner with Service Pro for quite a while. And so, for those who choose to kind of layer on this integration, you're now able to not just kind of streamline the inspection process that we've been talking about, but we can help to kind of enrich that a little bit and add an additional layer. So our platform is going to take the job data that your technicians are already capturing through Service Pro. So things like your equipment details, the service notes, the site info, and we can add some additional context and structure, maybe even a little additional analysis. In fact, from just a single make, model, and serial number, we can now provide up to 100 additional data points on a piece of equipment. Now, for the most part, guys, this is really going to be focused on commercial HVAC. We do serve other industries, though. We've got other industries coming. But ultimately, what we're looking to do is provide this additional data to help make businesses, kind of drive more impactful decisions, deliver more strategic and kind of data informed experiences to your customer. We can move on. Thank you. And I think that this is really, guys, kind of where the power move happens, so to speak, right? When job site data turns into business intelligence. So instead of just looking at inspections as one job at a time, your team can kind of zoom out and see a bigger picture across all of your service work. So from there, it's really easy to spot where opportunities might exist, whether that's, upselling a replacement, catching assets before they fail, identifying repeat issues maybe that might need a long-term solution. And so what you see here is really kind of an example of what those insights can look like in practice. It's a really cool dashboard that we have. This is only showing a very small subset of the data that we can actually provide. But ultimately, what you can see are, what types of equipment are in service, which refrigerants they use, how old they are, maybe what heating methods they're relying on, and all kind of visualized in a way that your office and your customer can really understand at a glance. And I think that this really becomes a critical tool for building trust because you're not just telling customers, right, like what needs to be done, but you're able to show them why and why you're making those certain recommendations. So now let's say that you're reviewing assets at like a single facility. And if the average age is, I don't know, 16 years and assets are past their useful life, obviously that's really a perfect opening for a more proactive conversation. So rather than necessarily waiting for a piece of equipment to fail, you're able to recommend a maintenance or replacement plan that's based on real data, ultimately kind of bringing forward the problem and the solution, right, to the end customer. And if we take it, just one like final step further, looking across a customer's entire asset base, you can really start building a capital plan together with the customer, right? So by identifying, which units might be over, their end of life age, maybe 15 years plus, and maybe you're still using refrigerants like R22 or 410A, you can start to really calculate a potential replacement value and help them start planning for the future. So at the end of the day, guys, what we're looking to do is not help you provide only good service, but really a strategic partnership, right? You're moving from just a vendor to a strategic partner. And I think it all kind of starts with the data that your techs are already capturing in the field via Service Pro. And then ultimately being able to provide a much more comprehensive, easy to understand view for your end customer.
Perfect. Thanks, Amanda. And thank you again for taking part in our webinar here today. If you have any questions, please feel free to scan the QR code. Feel free to reach out, but thank you again for the time.